The world entered the 32-bit console world hungry for 3D games. While the transition for certain genres like racing and shooters was a natural progression, not so for the platformer. There was no blueprint on how to transform one of the most popular genres in gaming to the new world of polygons. Jumping Flash would be the first attempt at a true 3D platformer on the PlayStation. But would it be a glorified tech demo or deliver a true next-gen experience? Today, we take a look back at Jumping Flash. Jumping Flash was developed by Exact and Ultra and was published by Sony Computer Entertainment in November of 1995, almost 2 months after the US PlayStation launch. Jumping Flash is a first-person 3D platformer crossed with elements of a first-person shooter. But this is a platformer first and foremost. The unique aspect and the core gameplay mechanic is your character's ability to triple jump, which you use to navigate the open vertical environments, jumping from platform to platform to reach new heights, and all from a first-person perspective. Something new for its time, and heck, even unique today. Levels have the feel of rather abstract, virtual playgrounds, which deliver their enjoyment in exploration rather than difficulty. Enemies can mostly be ignored, and the platforming is fairly lenient. You take control of Rabbit, a robotic rabbit, who must search these levels for jet pods to stop the evil Baron Aloha and save the world. Aside from simply jumping on enemies, you're equipped with a sparkle beam gun with unlimited ammo, as well as special weapons which you can pick up throughout each level. However, the shooting aspects of the game take a backseat to the platforming, and their usefulness is relegated to the few corridor levels and boss battles spread throughout. The shooting is mostly optional. The game presents a very vibrant and quirky atmosphere. You have weird-looking creatures like this, floating frying pans over volcanoes, googly-eyed crab things pushing boulders. This is all paired with a pretty catchy soundtrack, and overall the presentation gets a big thumbs up from me. It certainly has its own style, all the way down to the exit pad and the stage clear screen. So enough with the overview, let's jump into Jumping Flash. It doesn't take long to realize simply running around isn't what the game is about. It's time to jump and go. While the first jump is about what you would expect, it's when you perform a double or triple jump that you start to understand just how the game deals with the challenge of platforming in a fully 3D environment. The camera view automatically shifts down, showing your shadow on the ground below. This mechanic, as well as the ability to move your character in mid-air, allows you to easily judge your landing spot and hit your mark. It takes the guesswork out of the platforming. This leads to the game offering much more vertical exploration than a typical platform game. You'll find yourself looking upwards towards platforms and plotting just how you're going to get to them. I often found myself jumping with no destination in mind, just getting as high as possible and seeing what my options were. The game's story is presented through a CG cutscene as you load the game. The diabolical scientist Baron Aloha has excavated vast chunks of Crater Planet and has shuttled them off in hopes of turning them into a huge private retreat for himself. He has unplugged the jet pods which propel each world and stashed them throughout. It's up to Rabbit to recover the jet pods, take down Baron Aloha, and restore Crater Planet. The game features 6 worlds with each offering 3 different stages, with the third stage acting as that world's boss. Most stages are open environments which cater to Rabbit's jumping ability. Early on, this aspect of the game is done in a risk-free way. Most of the jumping is done on platforms over solid ground, so if you miss your jump, you simply land back where you started. And with no fall damage, there's no harm done. As you progress further, levels add wide gaps that must be cleared, often with precise landing spots. But with the soaring heights of the triple jump and the game's innovative take on the mechanic, you always feel like you are in total control. Where you don't feel in control is when you're on the ground and interact with the game's shooter aspects and tank controls. The game offers no strafing option, and hitting targets that are above or below requires you to stop in place while holding the R1 or R2 button, which acts as a free look mode. Run and gun shooting, this is not. Although each stage offers numerous enemies, they really pose no threat, and I found myself engaging them only if they got in my way. This is more prevalent in the game's 2 dungeon-like corridor levels, where jumping isn't an option. Thankfully, there are only 2 levels of this type. Jumping Flash without jumping really isn't very fun. The goal of each stage is to gather up 4 jet pods that are scattered throughout the level. all within the specified time limit. You'll spend the majority of your time jumping and exploring in search of the next elusive carrot. This usually entails getting to the highest point possible, scanning the horizon, and then triple jumping your way across the map. Aside from a few tricky to locate jet pods, it's not too frustrating. While exploring the levels, you will also come across portals to a bonus stage. The goal is to pop all of the balloons in the allotted time of 1 minute, rewarding you with an extra life if completed successfully. This is one section of the game where you are forced to rely on the shooting, and the game does suffer for it. While I still think these levels are fun, the shooting just doesn't feel fluid or natural in any sense. Aside from the jet pods, the game offers a number of pickups, your typical health power-up, 1-ups, as well as a trippy power pill. The freeze time power-up has the added bonus of highlighting uncollected jet pods as well as the level exit on the radar screen, even if they are out of range. You also come across a number of fireworks that act as the game's special weapons. These are best saved for the third stage boss fights, but even then they aren't especially helpful, and I often found myself forgetting to even use them. As for the bosses, they usually continue the theme of each world's second stage, and range from standard things like dragons and turtles, but also include things that defy explanation. While some of these fights can be difficult, once you utilize the jump and shoot strategy, they go down fairly easily. So after progressing through the game, you eventually set up the final battle with Baron Aloha himself, or a mecha version of himself seems to be more accurate. This is definitely the most challenging fight in the game, but overall isn't especially difficult. A strategy of jumping over his attacks while constantly firing your weapon will whittle down his health in no time. Throw in his special weapon attack, and down he goes, ending the game. Or does it?
You ain't done yet.
It turns out you've only slightly damaged Aloha's base, and are required to beat the game again in a now unlocked extra mode. This is the same campaign as the main game, but moves the location of the jet pods around, decreases the time limit, and makes the enemies more difficult. Considering you can easily get through a playthrough in under an hour, this second run through is an easy way to artificially increase the playtime. Also, if you beat the game without using a continue, you unlock Super Mode. This gives you the ability to jump 3 additional times as well as dive bomb down. Your movement speed is also drastically increased with an added run button. This turns Rabbit into a virtual rabbit god, and is fun for a few minutes of game-breaking mayhem. Aside from the main campaign, the game also features a time attack mode where you can play through any level that you've completed, and speedrun at your heart's content. So after playing through extra mode, you once again set up the final encounter with Baron Aloha. The fight is the same as before, and after defeating Aloha, you are treated to the endgame cutscene. Aloha flees as his base is destroyed, and Crater Planet is restored to its full glory. The credits roll, and the game is finished. Overall, Jumping Flash delivers a unique and surprisingly well executed attempt at 3D platforming. In what could have easily been an unenjoyable tech demo for new hardware, the open environment showcased the game's innovative, yet fun and playable jumping mechanic. It's not without its flaws, with woeful shooting mechanics and its low difficulty and length. There just isn't much challenge here, and lacks the replayability of many classic platform games. But it's definitely worth a playthrough to experience this unique, early foray into 3D platforming. In its time, Jumping Flash was released to universal praise. EGM gave the game scores ranging from 8 to 9. Next Generation gave the game 5 out of 5 stars. And GameFan gave the game scores ranging from 88 to 96, stating, "Jumping Flash is easily one of the most entertaining games I've ever played, while it lasts. Yes, this otherwise flawless CD suffers from the 32-bit curse of extremely short length. Even so, this is the reason to buy a PlayStation." Physically, the game was only released in a long box, with no jewel case variant. However, the game is still available to buy digitally on the PlayStation Network. So that's a look back at Jumping Flash, an innovative take on the platformer that is worth a look even today. Thanks for watching everyone, and I'll see you next time.